North Korea is known as one of the most closed countries in the world. Under the leadership of the Kim dynasty, the country controls almost every aspect of its citizens' lives, including faith and religion. The main ideology adopted is Juche, a form of nationalist and self-reliance philosophy, which has replaced the role of traditional religion in the country. In a context like this, it is difficult to imagine that there are North Koreans who embrace other religions, let alone Islam. However, behind the Iron Curtain, an interesting phenomenon has emerged. A small number of North Koreans who fled abroad have decided to embrace Islam. Why did this happen? What drove them to make this big spiritual decision? Officially, North Korea recognizes several religions: Buddhism, Christianity, and Chondoism. However, in reality, religious freedom is almost non-existent. Religion is considered a threat to the absolute power of the state. Those who are caught practicing religion in secret, especially Christianity, can face prison, forced labor camps, and even execution. And Islam itself is barely known in North Korea. There are no mosques, no Muslim communities, and almost no access to Islamic teachings. In this situation, it is very unlikely that North Koreans will learn about Islam unless they leave the country. Many North Koreans flee abroad because of starvation, political oppression, or in search of freedom. They usually cross into China illegally and from there try to seek asylum in third countries such as South Korea, Thailand, Mongolia, and even Middle Eastern countries. Some of them end up living or taking temporary refuge in Muslim countries such as Indonesia, Malaysia, and Gulf countries such as Qatar or the United Arab Emirates. In these places, they meet Muslims for the first time, see a different way of life, and become acquainted with Islamic teachings firsthand. Even though they are outside North Korea, their spiritual journey is not easy. Some have to face pressure from fellow defectors who choose not to practice religion or follow other religions. Others face the challenge of adapting to the new rules of Sharia that they have learned. However, those who truly believe remain steadfast in their faith, and some are now active in preaching or becoming part of local Muslim communities. One widely known story is that of a North Korean defector who converted to Islam while in Indonesia. He lived in an immigrant shelter in Jakarta, where he interacted with Muslims every day. He said he was deeply touched by the way Muslims treat foreigners and how Islam teaches compassion and justice. Official data on the number of North Korean defectors who converted to Islam is very limited. However, reports from humanitarian agencies indicate that this phenomenon is not uncommon and occurs in various transit countries. The phenomenon of North Koreans converting to Islam is not a massive wave, but it reflects something profound: that faith can grow even in the most unlikely of circumstances. That when people feel love, peace, and truth, they can be drawn to the light, even if it comes from a place they have never known. In the stories of these defectors, we see how powerful the appeal of Islam as a universal and heartfelt religion can be, even for those who have lived their entire lives in the dark. North Koreans who convert to Islam are also part of a larger global trend: asylum seekers experiencing spiritual transformation in exile. In countries both Muslim and non-Muslim, asylum seekers often experience profound shifts in their identities. In the uncertainty of their lives, they search for meaning, stability, and answers, and religion often provides a hopeful refuge. Islam, as a religion of community, solidarity, and strong moral principles, provides a sense of security and purpose for many who are lost. This includes some North Korean defectors who have never been exposed to religion publicly before. In countries like Turkey, Pakistan, Malaysia, and Indonesia, all of which have shelters or humanitarian aid networks, asylum seekers from North Korea are exposed firsthand to the gracious, open, and loving lives of Muslims. The experience opens their eyes and hearts. Converting to Islam is not just about changing one's faith. For many North Korean defectors, this is the beginning of a total transformation. Some begin to learn Arabic, read the Quran, and take Islamic studies seriously. Some cite Islam as the turning point in their lives, from trauma and emptiness to spiritual recovery. Some even serve as bridges between the Muslim world and other defectors. They help explain that Islam is not the image often portrayed in North Korean propaganda, which often equates religion with colonialism or extremism. They serve as examples that Islam offers peace and universal values. Although still small and largely invisible, The North Korean Muslim community that has formed in exile is an interesting seed. In the long term, if there is a major change on the Korean peninsula, then the experiences and insights of these Muslim defectors could become part of a new mosaic of a more open and pluralistic Korean society. Furthermore, it shows that Islam can cross even the most extreme cultural and political boundaries, not because of coercion, not because of a political agenda, but because of a sincere and deep spiritual experience. If we ask, why do North Koreans convert to Islam? The most honest answer lies not in numbers or statistics, but in the stories of people who for decades lived in dictatorship, hunger, and emptiness, finally found hope, love, and God. This also sends an important message to Muslims around the world. When a North Korean defector who has never known religion, grown up in an atheist system, and lived in fear, can find Islam and love it, then it is a reminder that guidance belongs to Allah and that Islam knows no geographical or ethnic boundaries. However, this is also our responsibility. Have we opened the door enough? Have we been gentle enough in showing Islam that is full of love, justice, and mercy? Often, people are drawn to Islam not by logical arguments or debates, but by morals, by an attitude, by a smile, by a helping hand when they needed it most. So it is with many North Koreans. Their first encounter with Islam was not from a book, but from the kindness of a Muslim. For those who convert, life afterward is still challenging. They must learn to know God in a new language, understand the law from scratch, and adapt to a very different culture. But they do it with remarkable perseverance. Some even say that for the first time in their lives, they feel like full human beings, not mere instruments of the state, not objects of propaganda, but free souls who choose their own paths. They may be a largely unheard of minority, but theirs is a portrait of hope, that even when someone comes from the most isolated place on earth, their heart can still be touched by light, that even in the ruins of life and trauma, people can rise. And Islam is there not to judge their past, but to embrace them as brothers, and that when the world seems harsh and unjust, Islam offers a loving haven where humans can find God in themselves. Imagine a young North Korean man. He grew up never hearing the name of God. He never saw a holy book or witnessed a congregational prayer. His life was full of fear. Every move was watched. Every thought was restricted. He knew no love from God, only obligatory love for his country and its leader. And for the first time, he felt warmth, not from a hug, not from food, but from something invisible. In those two sentences, he found the peace he had never had. And in the midst of a world he had never understood, he began to love Islam. He didn't know much, just a few translated verses, just bits of stories passed down through word of mouth. But it was enough to shake his heart. He began to pray with words he composed himself, in a language he understood. No prayer mat, no fixed direction of prayer, just a sincere longing to draw closer to the God he had just met. Day after day, he kept that faith like a small fire in his chest, guarded against being extinguished by fear. He knew that one wrong word could end his life, but strangely, he felt more alive than ever. And there, behind the Iron Curtain and the propaganda, grew a tree of faith, fragile but real. A middle-aged woman, once a teacher of ideology, now secretly hid a copy of the Quran in a secret drawer. A young soldier held back tears as he heard the story of the Prophet Abraham. A small child asked softly, "Does God know our names?" They all moved slowly, silently toward the same light.